Oh, I think I need a new spine. Oh, killing me. So I'm sure my choice of food today won't come back to haunt me at all. Finishing off some of the foods I have left over from the Runcible Food photo shoot. One of the foods is tofu, which I don't usually care for, but I think it was Sunday night. I used it for, I did some pickled ginger, soy sauce, and wasabi flavoring and cooked it up in that, and then served it over noodles. Yeah, still tastes gross to me. I don't care for tofu. Tonight, I cut it into smaller pieces and cooked it up in some taco seasoning. So I added the taco seasoning to some juices left over from cooking down some vegetables. And then, so I cooked up some peppers, a little bit of cucumber, radishes. What else did I have? Broccoli, cauliflower. I feel like there was one or two other vegetables that I had left over. And I cooked those all up, cooked them pretty soft, and then pulled them out. And the juices that remained from that, I poured the taco seasoning packet in, half of the taco seasoning packet into that, and let it turn into a sauce that I could then stir the tofu into and cook it down a little bit more. And then I threw the vegetables back in, stirred it, and then dumped the rest of the taco seasoning back in and just really made it like saucy. And I tossed that into some tortillas. It was okay. I mean, it didn't taste as badly of tofu as it can sometimes, but it's still not my preferred food source. Tofu really isn't my thing. But fortuitously, it's now mostly gone. I think I have a little left of the taco stuff from tonight that I'll have to finish off tomorrow because I ate way too much today. But I am acutely aware of the fact that my choice of, on a day where I was already having digestive issues, eating tofu with cauliflower and broccoli probably isn't going to go well. Oh, and I drank some seltzer to go with it. So the carbonation is sure to help. And finished it off with, actually, one of my new favorite things was one of the things I had left over from the photo shoot for Runcible Foods was cranberry. If you go to the grocery store, there are a couple type of cranberry sauce that you can buy, and one of them is the canned, not the jellied canned, but like whole cooked cranberry in a little bit of a jelly. And when you break it up, it's like crumbles into blocks of cranberries with a little bit of jelly around them. And that's the stuff I got. I used that for the Runcible Food photo. And now it was time to use it up as a food item, which doesn't bother me any. I love a good cranberry. So I took that. I heated it up till it was mostly liquid, mixed in a can of mandarin oranges, because cranberry and mandarin orange is one of my favorite food combinations. I cooked it down a little to reduce it, added some confectioner's sugar. I think it was a powdered sugar. I don't think it was an icing sugar. Anyway, those types of sugars usually have a very fine powdery sugar with a little bit of cornstarch to prevent it from forming caking, from forming little beads or whatever. And so I mixed some of that in, and the cornstarch should help thicken it as well, and cooked it down a little bit further, popped it in the fridge. It's still pretty liquid. It's more in line with a syrup than a jelly. But I had some of those twist cans that pop full of biscuit dough that I got back before we all went into quarantine when you started to see people hoarding food. I grabbed a couple of cans of those, and the date was coming up on those, so I don't imagine they really go bad. But I cooked those up the other day and made some of those, and spreading some of that cranberry mandarin orange mixture onto that. That's pretty good. It's like a jelly. It tastes very much like a jelly, or almost like an apple butter, or a peach butter, without any of the spices added to it. So it's pretty tasty, I'll say that, and I'm really enjoying it. I cooked it down a little bit more tonight to see if I could get it any thicker. I may use it on French toast tomorrow, but it is definitely my new favorite thing. I know you can also use it to flavor other things. I actually added a spoonful of it to some seltzer to get a cranberry mandarin seltzer, which is all right. I imagine it's a little too sweet for, well, it's not as sweet as like most jellies. It's a tart, semi-sweet jelly, but it's a little too sweet for people who are not looking to add sweetness to it. You know what I mean? Like jellies are all fairly sweet. Jellies and jams are sweet foods. And I'm not usually one to eat a lot of that stuff, but it was really kind of tasty, and it was a good way to use that up. I think right now what I got left out of the Runcible Foods is beets, 2 beets, a turnip. I have my squash that I can use in my traditional stir fry. That's fine. I don't know that I'll be doing the carrots because I know I have a tendency to have a reaction to carrots now. It's not like an allergic reaction necessarily. It's like an oral allergy syndrome where the back of my throat is sore and it causes an earache for me, and like a sense of congestion if I eat them. But as near as we can tell, I don't have an actual allergy response to it, so it doesn't show up as an IgE immune response. It just shows up as a reaction to eating it. So I probably won't do the carrots. I do have a fair number of radishes left. I might cut those up and toss them into my stir fries. I might try to see if I can julienne them, make little ribbons of them, so that they can not be little cubes in the midst of my stir fry, or even little discs. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't hurt if they were little discs. But I've certainly felt like I've been eating way differently during the last couple of weeks of this. The other thing about today was, for whatever reason, my digestive system's been really, really cranky with me. I have had, and it might be part of the factor here, I do know that when my system's sensitive, it's sensitive to salt content. And I have been, I sort of fell back in love with having pickles. I had one of the things I took pictures of for the Runcible Foods was some pickles. So I got a jar of pickles, and I was like, I might as well finish those off. So I'd have one a night or something like that. And I really did enjoy them. It was really nice having some good kosher dill pickles again. But I feel like they probably weren't the best choice for my system. And I've also had some green olives in a jar, and enjoyed those immensely too. But I'm not like sitting there eating a whole jar full of them. So they really shouldn't wreck me the way they do. But I think that's part of what set me off today. And it's not like I wasn't feeling good when I got up this morning, but I recovered and went through my day. It was like I was fine most of the day. And at the least opportune moment, shearing pain for like an hour and a half. And then after that, having little bouts of pain all evening long is about how it runs. So it tends to wear me out. I'm pretty tired today. And I'm a little cranky. I'm a little cranky because the place where I work, there's one of my coworkers who's moved into management was making a comment about how she's frustrated with the other management because they're not managing anything. And they don't take responsibility for making sure everything is working right and people are on schedule and stuff. In particular, not so much whether or not employees are showing up on time. That doesn't seem to be as much of a problem. It's more along the lines of the people who are in charge aren't making the appropriate adjustments to make sure that they don't, specifically, the instance that ticked her off most is, and it happens pretty frequently, is when I'm working and the other managers are in charge, they never give me a break. I'm there almost my whole shift before somebody makes a point to point out that they need to make sure the employees are getting their breaks. It's a legal requirement that we get them, and they're not. And so this merchandising manager or assistant manager, I forget what her current rank is, she's pretty frustrated because she comes in late in everybody else's shift and ready for the next shift. And the other people who are in charge of the shift up and leave because their shift is over and they're gone, and they've not taken care of the responsibility of making sure all of that's been done, and certain aspects of maintaining and managing the store, like putbacks, damaging out merchandise, that stuff doesn't get done. And so it always falls on the last shift to take care of it all. And she's a little frustrated with it. And she's voiced that frustration a few times. And I'm like, I can understand why you're frustrated. I also know that during the daytime, they're very busy and they're trying to take care of some things. And this person says, don't make excuses for them. They didn't give you a break your entire shift, but they didn't miss their break, did they? I went, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. And so I'm starting to see it more when I'm around my shift. And so like today, I came in earlier in the day, worked and worked and worked and worked. One of these people comes in for a midday half shift, not like a full shift, comes in 2.5 hours after I came in. Within the first 2 hours of their shift, they're going on a break. I haven't had one yet. And 2 more hours go by, they're starting to talk about taking their second break or their lunch. I still haven't had my first break yet. And I said to one of the other employees, it's interesting that I haven't been given my break yet. And I said, yeah, you haven't had one yet? I went, nope. And I said, don't tell them. I want to see how long it takes them to remember that this is something they're responsible for making sure. Because the other part of it is, in order for me to go on break, there has to be somebody else who can do my job while I'm on break. And they have not prepared anybody. They haven't given them the drawers for the till. Nobody else is able to do what I'm doing, so only I can do it right now. They haven't set anybody else up. They haven't asked one of the other employees if they could cover for me. And they're not even remotely ready for me to go on a break. So it just looks like it's not going to happen. Time goes by. They keep forgetting to do it. And nobody's mentioned it to them. They're not even aware that they're forgetting. They're not even forgetting. They're not even aware that it's something that needs to be done because they're just not paying attention. And a few times I call people to back me up on the register by doing a few things for customers that I can't do while I'm ringing. And Nobody comments, nobody notices. As soon as I'm done with the row of customers, they just disappear again. And so I've been doing stuff on the floor in the meantime, rebuilding a whole section of the floor, which technically isn't my job, but I'm doing it anyway because I've taken responsibility for that section of the store because nobody else seems to be doing it right. I have to keep fixing the mistakes of people who do it wrong, and then we get in trouble because it's not done right. So I've been doing that all afternoon, and I'm just kind of waiting to see when they're going to figure out. And literally half an hour before my shift is supposed to end, somebody goes, "You should probably go on a break, right?" I went, "Yeah, I probably should have." And so it was like it took them that long to figure out, a whole shift to figure out I should have had a break. Now, the thing on top of my mind at the end of that was, I'm pretty sure, based off of how long I'm there, I should also get a lunch. But I don't get one because they didn't give me one. And so I'm just very curious to see like where this goes. I'm more and more just starting to get to the point where when the end of my shift comes, because this is the other one that's happened pretty much my whole time there, is when the end of my shift, as according to the schedule, happens. So on a given night, it might be 6:30, something like that. At the end of the night and my shift comes around and nobody's there to take me and my till out, to go to the back room to count out my till and sign my paperwork for the end of the night and leave, I'm stuck working there. That's what I usually consider it. These days, I'm more and more considering the fact that if that starts to happen, when the end of my shift, according to the schedule, occurs, I'm just going to walk out the door. Like, I have every right just to walk out that door, and they can be as livid as they want to be. But I think I need to start sort of putting my foot down on some of this, because I'm like, I got other things I want to be doing with my time. I've had offers for jobs that pay 2 to 3 times as much as what I'm doing right now. There is absolutely no reason why I should have to put up with that. And the thing is, I probably would have been of this mind eventually. I mean, I've had times where I felt like that on a given day and gave myself a little time to recuperate, and gradually just kind of thinking about when I was going to end up leaving the company. But having that talk with one of the managers really makes me much more aware of it right now. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I want to keep giving them my time like this. But I guess we'll see where it goes from here. I need to figure some of that out right now, because I'm not up for being taken for granted like that. And I think some of that also instigated some of my digestive problems today. I shouldn't go an entire shift without a break so I can get something to eat, because going too long without food wrecks my system. I know enough people in unions, and I know union organizers. If I wanted to, I could probably drop a note real quick and we could have a whole lot of show up. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that gets me is, like I said, I've been offered, jobs at places that pay more. I could do fewer hours for the same pay, and there's a part of me that didn't want to do that, because I want to do something that I enjoy doing, not sitting in a soulless cubicle, punching at a keyboard, doing things I don't care about all day long. Like, the thing I like about where I am right now is, for when I'm working on the floor, which is, I don't get as much time to do that. I get a little grumbly if I don't get some time to do that. But when I'm working on the floor to organize a whole section of the store, like there's a deep sense of satisfaction going into a section that looks like people stuck their arms into a shelf and ran down the aisle and left it like that, taking an aisle that looks like that and spending a little time and coming back to sit looking at it and go like, I can take one look at this and I can tell you which things we need to restock on the next truck. Everything's in nice striped rows. Everything's in order. Everything has a place and it's in its place. There is something good about achieving that during a shift. There's something good about tending to a section where you go like, I know in 6 days this food item is going to reach its can't be sold by date. And so talking to the manager and getting it put up front as a discounted items, 50% off or 4 for $1 kind of price, so that somebody can purchase this thing, especially at a good deal. We did it for a bunch of breads recently. We get loaves of bread, and those loaves of bread have a date on them. And when that date comes along, you can't sell them anymore. But they're good for like another 5 to 7 days before they start to be a little stale. And even after that, you could probably use them in French toast and things like that. But if you take them on the day or two before the date, pop them in your freezer, they're good till when you need them. And so like literally we had a shopping cart full of loaves of bread, 4 for $1, 25 cents for a decently big sized loaf of bread. That's a good price. And being able to make sure that those food items find a home, don't get wasted. Keeping up on the section to make sure it's filled out with the new stuff and fresh and ready to go and in good order. I enjoy that part. There's a part of me that takes satisfaction from being able to do that. And at the same time, like I mentioned to a friend of mine, like if they offered overnight shifts where you could just leave me alone in an aisle to do that, like the whole night, just rebuild this aisle, tear it down, rebuild it back up, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I might still want to work a day or two during the daytime with customers, because there is a certain amount of pleasure I have from just having a fun time with customers. I've actually thought about doing a series of videos where I do my cash register shtick, because I've had some great interactions with customers, and I've done it multiple times for multiple jobs where like the jokes and the banter and the goofing around and the puns and the just having fun, the conversation. Like the best example of how I have a little bit of fun with that is like, I don't do the standard "how are we today" or what is it? Are you having a good day? Something like that. I don't even remember what most people usually do in those types of situations, because my go-to responses are usually something along the lines of "how goes your adventure?" or something to that effect. And if somebody asks me how I'm doing, my response is, well, I'm likely to survive the afternoon, so we're probably doing pretty good. And so like those are responses that are unique and different enough that they sort of require you to be present in the interaction. You don't just casually hear that and not react as okay, wait, what? You have to stop and have to really think about who you're talking to, what they said, and how you're supposed to follow. Because you don't follow that, I'm doing all right too, and then just quietly go back to staring blankly at your food as it gets scanned. It's a sort of a required interactive response. So having a response ready that sort of gets the game going again. I have rarely had anybody who's had a bad interaction at the register. And I usually ask them questions that are pertinent to what they're doing. somebody would go by with poster board, and I would say like something to the effect of, "You doing something interesting with these?" And they'd tell me what they're doing, doing a school project, or I'm making some signs for a yard sale. Oh well, just keep us posted about how it goes, because it's posted board. And so it's cheesy. It's totally cheesy, but it's kind of fun to do. And people are like, "Could I get some balloons?" And you go, "No, you may not." Well, okay, maybe. And just kind of play with them a little bit, and it lightens their day. It's a little bit fun to do, and I'd miss that if I weren't doing it. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing the job I'm doing now, rather than sitting in a cubicle looking at a screen to figure out what the numbers on a license plate that skipped through the toll without paying was, or some stupid job like that. That's one of the jobs I did have an offer for at one point. They paid really good, but I think it would be a bit soul crushing. And I'm not a narc. I'm not keen on a job where I sell people out for getting tickets. I don't really want to do that job. Now, the post office job that I had an offer from, that would have paid about $21 an hour. And that would be year round. That's also pretty much no interaction with the public, because it's a sorting center. So it'd be a late shift, which actually I think they were asking day shift, which was my problem. Late shift is what I prefer. And I've worked that on a seasonal basis. My biggest problem with that is it's great seasonal. You get a little bit of an exercise routine up towards Christmas, and then they let you go on New Year's, and you're good to go. But many of my coworkers who were regulars and not seasonal, they all had braces and had multiple surgeries on very vulnerable joints, because you work them super hard in that job. And it's a workout to do it, but 2 months of it is about what I want to do to my body in a year. I don't want to do 12 months of that every year and be going in for surgery. And eventually, if you do work that kind of job, after about 1 or 2 years, you're sort of pressured to join one of the unions there. And I'm not a union man myself, but I definitely see why they have them. But yeah, so it's just like I'm kind of trying to figure out whether or not I jump ship to something that's going to be a little more courteous to me as an employee. There's a bullet hole in the front of your building. You mentioned casually after talking about your gun. Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I have given some thought to the possibility of, like, if I take a job that pays a high pay rate and I live as frugally as possible, could I build up enough in a couple of years of doing that where I could retire way early and then just go on living my life however I chose after that? There are a few people who have done things like that. There are a couple blogs out there of some people that I'm sort of like, I was sort of interested in what they had to say, and then I sort of got disenfranchised by it a little bit. There's a lot of people out there like, yeah, I retired in my early 30s. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can see that making some sense. And like, if you live very cheaply before and manage to save up 3/4 or 4/5 of every paycheck for a couple, and live way below the poverty line afterwards, if you live very frugally, very simply, with the right investments of what you save up over the years, you could make a sustainable life. It's a lot to get that to work. But the thing that always gets me is the people who are famous for doing this, the ones who have the blog that talks about how great it was to retire in their early 30s, they are almost always somebody who bought a house from their parents for next to nothing because their parents let them have a really great deal on it. And so they had the house and property, and all they had to do was worry about paying the property taxes. And yes, they bike to and from work for a few years, and they start their own business, and they have connections that get their business off the ground so that they can take a job once every month or two and make, I think it was like 12 to 14 grand. I'm like, I'm never going to make 12 to 14 grand in a month doing anything. A few of them have also been, they like, I worked in the tech boom in the 90s, and I worked long hours during those days and saved every penny I earned. Well, that's great, but I'm not going to make, none of us are going to make $160,000 a year right now in any kind of circumstance. That's an unrealistic starting block to start with. And so I've seen a few of those. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know that makes a lot of sense for all of us. But I mean, there are a few other ways that you can get there. It just seems sort of stupid to me that everybody who always talks about retiring early, it's like, oh yeah, you inherited 137 grand from one of your parents' life insurance when they passed from a stroke or something like that. It's like, yeah, no, that you're not floating on your own achievements at that point. You didn't achieve early retirement. You got handed an opportunity to retire early. I am definitely thinking along the lines of, do I take the jobs that pay enough to get me out of the system faster? Or do I take the jobs that are meaningful and that I value and switch regularly to keep up with that kind of shifting environment, and in that regards end up working longer? I don't know. I don't know what the right choice is. There's a part of me wants to say, like, just save up to buy a small piece of land somewhere, put a tiny house on your piece of land and live, grow a garden to grow your own food costs, get a couple solar panels and generate some of your own power through wind and water mills, and get your rainwater reclamation system going, and get your water, your power, and your electricity, your food, and your heating system all off of what you're working on, so that you have to pay your income can be almost exclusively put away towards all those little costs that you can't meet yourself. And I've always liked that idea. It's a little further away than I want it to be, but I'm trying to decide how much of that to start chasing now. I don't know. I have to think about that a bit. It's 34 minutes in tonight. I think I'm probably going to call it soon here. I've been doing some brainstorming as to working on some of my projects again and trying to recover some of what I've lost in the crash. Yeah, I've hit a few hurdles of things that, like, damn, I wish I could look that up. I wish I could dig out my notes and look at it again, but I can't. But I've also had a few moments where I'm like, I think this would be better if we just rework this So I'm sort of playing at some of that right now. But I guess that's sort of it for tonight. Tomorrow I've got to do some errands and stuff. It's one of my few days off, but I got so much to do on my day off that it's not a day off. So I should be available tomorrow night to do another round if I'm not totally exhausted and wiped out. And I guess on that note, I will say good night and take care, which is, I think, backwards to what I usually do. I'm sure my cut and paste had something else in it tonight, so I was going to do that. Stay sane, stay safe, and don't go shooting any holes in your building.